This is Future Fork, a show that explores the world of food and the decisions we can make today that will shape our future. On the show, you'll hear from innovators in the food space. We'll have disruptive conversations with people from around the globe who are taking the lead on topics like food sustainability, ending world hunger, food security, and so much more. I'm your host, Paul Newnham. In this episode, we're talking to Shannon Fernando-Rubera, founder and CEO of Alabaster International. She is a board-certified nurse practitioner on a mission to transform food security and empower women in East Africa. Today, we're diving deep into Alabaster's groundbreaking Enset food security initiative, a project that's catching global attention after being recognized by the Clinton Global Initiative. You'll hear about a remarkable crop called Enset, how innovative farming is changing lives for indigenous women, and the extraordinary journey of bringing hope to communities facing food insecurity. Let's get into it. Shannon, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here.
Great to have you with us. So let's start at the beginning. For anyone who doesn't know, what is Alabaster International?
Alabaster International, we are a nonprofit, an NGO based here in the United States, but we have local operations throughout East Africa, particularly in Kenya, South Sudan, and Ethiopia. And essentially, our whole ethos is empowering rural women through healthcare, food security, and female entrepreneurship.
Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to begin Alabaster and particularly work with women.
I'm a family nurse practitioner by profession, so healthcare has been sort of my main focus for most of my career. And after I graduated college, I took some time off to explore Africa, particularly in Kenya. So I actually lived in Kibera, which at the time was one of the largest informal settlements in the world. I lived there for almost 3 months and really fell in love with Kenya, with African culture, particularly East Africa, and actually really got to know the women of the community. And it was through their love, their mentorship, listening to their stories is really where Alabaster was really born. And so once I came back stateside, I got through school, I decided that I would want to start an organization to really empower and walk alongside women like the ones I lived with. And so that's how Alabaster came to be.
And so the focus on women, why women, and why did you pick that particular focus point?
Yeah, I think for me, whether it was working, when I was in Kenya, working alongside learning from women, I also have been working with the people experiencing homelessness in Los Angeles in the Skid Row community, actually home to one of the largest concentrations of people experiencing homelessness in all of the United States. And whether it was here kind of in the urban setting in LA or in Africa, what I've really found is women are the cornerstone of communities, particularly when it comes to food security, health. They are the gatekeepers. They're the nurturers of families in every community, whether that's in the West or even in the global South. And so what I've really found is that we wanted to empower women and come alongside them because we believe that when we empower a woman, we empower an entire community.
I know Alabaster International has recently announced a food security initiative based around Enset. Tell us a little bit about what is Enset.
So Enset, we're really grateful to, first of all, I want to acknowledge the indigenous populations and communities in Ethiopia that have enabled us to learn about this amazing crop. So I want to acknowledge particularly the indigenous women that we've been working alongside in Ethiopia and who have graciously shared their wisdom and their expertise about this crop Enset. So Enset is a banana-like crop, indigenous to Ethiopia, really grown and cultivated in the south and southwest of Ethiopia. And it's a staple food for over 20 million people, actually, in Ethiopia. And it's really touted as the next global superfood, particularly because of its drought tolerance. It's perennial, so you can harvest it year round. And also it's quite nutrition rich. So it's rich in carbohydrates, starch, vitamin A, calcium, minerals. So we came across this because of our work in Ethiopia and working with our partner, Arbor Minch University in Ethiopia. we found that there were a lot of research, actually almost 50 years of research, saying that Enset can be this next answer, not only to hunger throughout Ethiopia, not just in the south, but also regionally, in Africa. And so that's really where the Enset Food Security Initiative by Alabaster, but with our partners, we really want to acknowledge our partners on the ground in Ethiopia and in Kenya. That's where it was born.
And so how does Enset specifically address food security challenges in East Africa? So talk to us a little bit about the crop.
Yeah, so what we found through the research and also talking to smallholder farmers on the ground is Enset is really prolific in that whether it's dry and in a drought season or whether it's really rainy or even in frost conditions, farmers and research has shown that Enset can really thrive. So it's really climate resilient. And so because of that, it's become the staple food, not only in general, but also for seasonal food gaps. So when other annual cereal crop, the sorghum, the wheat, the maize fail, Enset really, really thrives. And so that's been one of the reasons it's been an answer to food security in Ethiopia. And studies have shown it can do the same in other parts of particularly East and Southern Africa as well.
And you've achieved some historic milestones in the work that you're doing. So talk to us about the first ever transfer of live Enset plant material outside Ethiopia. Tell us a little bit about what happened there, but also what does this mean for regional food security?
So we really, really are grateful again to our partners on the ground that made this historic transfer possible. As I mentioned, Arborman's University, and then our partners in Kenya, Girl Child Network, and Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, and of course the Ethiopian Biodiversity Institute, which is who we liaised to enable this transfer to happen for research purposes. And one of the reasons it's so historic is because, had never been done before for Enset, and essentially was bringing together stakeholders from the global south, right? Ethiopia and Kenya really coming together to say, hey, we want to come up with a solution for hunger that's based in our traditions, in our brotherhood, right? In our collaboration. Essentially, the transfer now enables Enset to be able to be researched in agroecologies outside of Ethiopia for the first time, so we can understand if it can truly be a regional food security solution. And so far, our studies and experiments have been very, very successful. So we just completed year 1 of our project and entering into year 2.
So I was explaining Enset to somebody the other day and they were like, I don't know what that is. What else can it be known as?
So I would say Enset is essentially a tree. So because it grows up to 8 to 9 feet tall. So it's very different from the banana tree in that way. And you can't really eat its fruit. So it's fruit, even though it does have kind of banana-like fruit. It's actually inedible because it's full of like very large black seeds. And so what's really the food that comes of it is the sheaves of its large barks are scraped and a pulp is kind of formed from the shavings, essentially. And then that is either squeezed into a porridge or it's dried into flour to make breads and, pancakes and other things, obviously in keeping with cultural traditions. And so it's really prolific in that way because you can make a very diverse amount of food products with it. But it also is a zero waste crop because its leaves are used for fodder for livestock. And the byproduct of that shaving, to make the pulp results in this fibrous rope-like material that can then be used to make crafts, bags, other products that can be sold locally as well as internationally.
And that sounds quite labor intensive.
Yes. So traditional methods, by the way, it's exclusively largely farmed by women. So it is in Ethiopia, it's called the female crop. Again, very in keeping with our mission and vision for Alabaster International. And so women are the ones who kind of plan it and are definitely the ones involved in harvesting and processing. And so traditional methods that is done by hand, which can sometimes take an entire day for a group of women to harvest Enset and process it to get that pulp and the rope. And so we've been really excited to partner with Arborman's University to introduce mechanization, for technology to be able to use machinery for women and other community members to process Enset.
Local women, through this initiative, you're empowering and bringing them in. So what are some of the things that you've done with them specifically?
Again, so grateful for the commitment of the women on the ground. So they've been really the drivers of this work. And so we've been able to establish the first Enset crafts business in one part of Ethiopia called Dorze in Gamo Highlands. And so it's 20 women coming together to run this cooperative. And so it's now up and running. We were able to renovate a structure for them so they have a brick and mortar marketplace to sell from. And essentially they sell to tourists, they sell to guests that come into the area, and the business is doing really well. So that's one thing that we were able to do around with women. And then to support that, we built an Enset processing site with the housing, the machinery, so women can utilize that to more easily obtain the fiber needed for their business.
One of the things that I notice about your strategy is that you're emphasizing empowerment over short term aid. Talk to us a little bit about what that means.
So I think for us, what that really means, and that's our work, with this project, as well as the healthcare work we do in Kenya, the work we do in South Sudan, and even the work that I personally done in the US, all of that really has to do with the posture of listening. And so we really want to come into communities and make their agenda our agenda. So we don't really come in with a prescriptive model, but instead we say, okay, these are our focus areas. This is our areas where we feel called and we feel like we can do some capacity building and innovation. And then we allow the communities to then let us know, yes, we want to do this. Can you help us with this? Or this is our gap, or here's our strengths. Can you strengthen this further? That's what we really mean by empowerment, is that we center local voices, right? We center the voices, particularly of women who are both disproportionately impacted by food insecurity, but also are the core and the crux of the solution to food insecurity in the region. So, I think for us, enabling them to be the decision makers involved in every step of the way is what it means for us to be empowering versus just giving short-term aid.
So, is there any specific stories or examples of how you've seen that happen that you're particularly proud of?
I mean, we have a ton of stories on the health side. We've been doing the healthcare activities the longest, but I will say for the Enset side, the new business that we've established in Ethiopia with Enset crafts, it's really is quite remarkable. We've seen the women who had never worked with Enset in terms of making crafts and products from it. We saw the commitment of these 20 plus women coming together, giving of their time, their labor, right, to learn how to make these crafts. And then we were able to secure the permits needed, all thanks to Armament University's partnership, permits needed to, establish the business properly, and then secure the actual marketplace, the brick and mortar for them to sell. And I was actually just there 2 weeks ago. I got to see the fully fledged marketplace. I got to see their business in action. And they really report that their lives have changed. They have consistent income now for their families, not only for food, but for school fees and other, needs that they have. And more than anything, these were women that were chosen, by the local authorities because they struggled with unemployment or being able to find just consistent work. And so to see their eyes light up and their smiles and seeing them really empowered and really proud, being now women owned, a business owner, a co-owner, right, of this work was really exciting. And we're really proud of that. And we again really hope to scale that throughout the region.
And so, what does the future hold in terms of what are your plans for the coming year and how are things continuing to develop?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think what's amazing about Enset, and also when you center local voices, is there's so much creativity, right? And there's so much innovation that can be born. And I think one thing we've found in the work is we want to continue to scale this and set cultivation best practices, the regenerative, agricultural, ancient practices that these amazing indigenous communities practice. We want to be able to disseminate that first throughout Ethiopia so that Enset can be scaled throughout Ethiopia, right? And so one way we're planning to do that is to launch one of the first ever mobile apps called Enset AI with our partners Deep Impact AI. And we're hoping that app, we've already developed the prototype. And so we're excited to develop that further and then test it with farmers on the ground in Ethiopia and be able to really utilize that as one of the anchors to be able to get Enset cultivation practices out and also gather information for farmers to use, like forecasting data, even carbon sequestration calculations, things like that.
How will that app work? Tell us a little bit more about how the app will work. So AI, Enset, it's interesting.
So essentially the vision, and we're still kind of in the vision kind of / prototype stage, but essentially the vision would be that we would be able to provide mobile phones for those who don't have it, that have that application capability. We would choose certain people in the community that would really champion disseminating Enset practices throughout Ethiopia. And then they would get trained on how to use this app. We would help them download it. We'd make sure that they have ongoing training and support if they run into issues. And essentially, the hope is that farmers will then be able to input data into the app as well as get information from the app. And the data they input would then merge with AI algorithms to be able to then generate patterns. So, hey, it's March. This is a good time to plant. Or actually, no, you should wait and plant later. And then we're hoping that we'll have precipitation modeling as well, so they can predict when the next rainy season will be, so they know when to plant and when to not. So those are some of the things that we're really excited about how it would work.
And how can individuals and organizations support this Enset food security initiative?
I think the first way is listen to Future Fork.
Yeah.
and amazing podcasts like this. We're so honored to be included in this series. And I think really also going to our website, alabasterinternational.org, learning more about our work. If people want to partner with us, we're always looking for partnerships. They can contact us through our website, and we're always available to share what we're learning and also where we could use partnerships. So that would be a great way to learn more.
Absolutely. And one thing that I really like to ask everyone, it's a kind of a recurring question because we often talk a lot about food. What's one thing that you're loving to eat?
So that's a great question. I did not expect this question. I think for me right now, I am on an eggplant.
Oh,
I'm on an eggplant kick. Yes. So I'm originally from Sri Lanka. I was born there. And so we eat a lot of curries. And so the eggplant curry has been a hit in our household.
is it any type of eggplant or is there particular styles that you're focused on?
My husband is a chef, and then my mother loves to cook. So I'm surrounded by people who cook well. I don't cook at all. But usually we do a curry where we slice it and then we mix it with the saffron and the curry powder, garlic, ginger, and we eat it with rice. We even had it during Thanksgiving.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I love eggplant. I mean, it's so versatile. It sort of absorbs flavor in such a great way.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining the conversation, and thank you for all the work that you're doing on Enset. We'll put some links for people to be able to learn more and about what you're doing, but also to learn more about Enset. And I think these ingredients really need a light shone on them, and also the people that are protecting the indigenous communities that are really working with them. And so it's really great to be able to hear more about it, but also to be able to hear your passion for partnership and working with them.
Yes, thank you so much for having us and for bringing visibility to the work and ultimately really to the communities on the ground. We're really grateful. Thank you.
You've been listening to Future Fork, a show that explores the world of food and the decisions we can make today that will shape our future. Future Fork is produced by Disruptive Consulting Solutions and supports the SDG2 Advocacy Hub. For more info, head to the website futureforkpodcast.com. This show was produced with strategy and production support from Wavelength Creative. So you don't miss an episode of Future Fork, make sure to subscribe to or follow the show in your podcast app. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find the show. I'm Paul Newnham, and I'll see you in the next episode.